Hi, I'm Ron.
And I'm Don.
And this is the Ron and Don Show. Thanks for joining us today. Our topic today is tornadoes. It's the second in a three-part series on warm weather and some of the events that we have to deal with as the temperatures warm up across the country. Interesting thing about tornadoes is they can occur with or without rain. You don't necessarily have to have rain to have a tornado, and you don't necessarily get rain when you have a tornado.
But they are extremely violent, extremely local, and they really create a lot of problems. They can happen almost anywhere in the country. There's a few isolated spots that they won't. I've lived in New England for a number of years, and they happened in Maine and in Massachusetts. It's not frequent, but it happened. I also have lived in Tornado Alley, and it gets kind of exciting there. In the springtime, that tornado area is primarily the Deep South, the old Deep South, and then as the spring shifts, the frequency shifts to the West Texas, to the Great Lakes corridor, but they still happen with a lot of frequency in the Old South and then spring up all over the country. It is not just there. You can get them anywhere.
Now, forecasters have gotten pretty good with their computer models over the years at forecasting tornado events. But what they're not really good at is forecasting specific tornado events in specific areas. So oftentimes warnings for tornadoes can be very short. They can come very quickly, or the tornado can come very quickly thereafter. So a warning for a tornado, even if it comes with much time to plan, doesn't mitigate the property damage that's likely to result.
Well, the actual terms are, the watch means conditions are right for formation of a tornado. Warning means there's one spotted and it's either on the ground or heading towards the ground. So a warning means it's imminent in that exact location and it's possibly going in a specific direction. Will it hit your restaurant? Who knows? I've had one that had it go right over the top of. I've had it go right over the top of my house, knock off some bricks on my chimney. It is very localized. Some of the things that you have to be aware of in the restaurant business is we have an assembly permit. That means we have to be very conscious of what's going on with the people within our building. And in an emergency situation, and it's any emergency situation that could hazard the life safety of the individuals within the building, we have to be accountable for. So I strongly encourage you to encourage operations to do a little bit of training and coaching of their hourly staff. First, the guest staff, the ones that take care of the guests, they need to know when a warning or an emergency comes up, how many guests there are in the building. They have to count them. They have to account for the ones that are in the restroom or in the waiting area. And then they have to be ready to lead them to a place of safety, direct and lead. And then the kitchen staff, again, particularly for tornadoes, you have to know how many of the kitchen staff there are and how many of the whole staff of the entire restaurant are in there. And they have to prepare the kitchen by shutting down all the cooking appliances, putting out any solid fuel cooking items. And
I would imagine the electric, the gas, turning those off is the best way to prevent a fire if there is going to be a tornado.
Yeah, if something happens and we have hot equipment, that will cause combustibles to catch on fire. The staff and the guests need to be taken to a safe location. That could be hallways, restrooms. In some restaurants where you have a closed kitchen and a service alley area, that's an excellent place for them. They won't get in trouble. You don't want to take them into the kitchen because oftentimes those are, again, large exposed areas where the roof could collapse and you got all that hot equipment that they could be injured by. So you want to get them into an area where the walls are close together, so if the roof does come down, it won't get them.
A tuck and duck under the front of the house tables is probably not a sufficient place to hide.
It is a bad place to die, and we don't want that in our restaurants at all. Now, at the end of the incident, you want to rally all the people that are within your building out into a spot in the parking lot where there's no ponding water, no down power lines away from trees that could be weakened and ready to fall, all that kind of stuff. And you've got to keep them together because you need to know exactly how many human beings you had in the restaurant and keep them together. If they want to run off and get in their car and go, you got to find out what their name is and where they're going. If we need to render first aid to somebody, then render that first aid. But if they have to be transported to a hospital by somebody's car, then you need to get their names and what hospital they're going to be going to. You cannot expect the first responders to be there right away. You're going to have to manage this information and these people so that when the first arrivers come, they're going to want to know how many people are in the building, how many got out, is there a chance there's anyone left in the building if there's been substantial damage, if there's people that have left, where have they gone, so they can double check on everything and make sure that we aren't missing anybody.
I think it's probably important too to have an upstream communication with not only the regional manager but also any other facility managers to start talking about staging for recovery.
Exactly. Now, it is part of your assembly permit requirements that you have to manage all that information, and it's a lot to do, especially for shift leaders for the front of the house. So the managers have to coach this and maybe even do some practice runs with it.
A lot to think about. I'm Ron.
And I'm Don.
This is the Ron and Don Show. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe.